Hey everyone, this is Exploring Fiction, and welcome back to another video. So guys, this is a video I've been wanting to make for a long time. Because I just read A Game of Thrones, the first book in A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin, for the first time. Despite how popular Game of Thrones became on HBO, I never watched it, because I always wanted to read the books first. I, of course, knew some things, since it's pretty much impossible to escape spoilers for so long. But, like I said, I finally read A Game of Thrones for the first time. This is also my first time reading George R.R. Martin in general, so I want to give you my thoughts in this video. And, of course, there will be a spoiler warning for A Game of Thrones, Book 1 of A Song of Ice and Fire, in this video, because I will be going in depth about it, spoilers and all. So, if you somehow don't know the events of this book or any spoilers involved, you have been warned. So guys, let's get right into my thoughts, because I'm super excited to talk about this book. The best and most impressive thing about this book to me personally was the world building. I haven't been this excited to dig into a world since Tolkien. Now, I'm not saying the world building here is deeper or better than Middle-earth, not at all really. But it had a degree of fun and appeal to it, especially the house genealogy and some of the architectural or geographical places and names. Those just evoked a sense of exploration within me that made me want to learn more. I mean, really, George R.R. Martin's world building, for me, was personally so exciting. Similarly, Martin's character descriptions were top-notch. Though there were a few minor characters I would sometimes mix up, for the most part, every character had something distinct about him or her that allowed me to picture each uniquely in my mind, which is quite a feat with how many named characters appeared in the story. I mean, from character descriptions to character names, there was just so much to sink my teeth into, and I just loved every minute of it. Concerning the plot, I was overall much more interested in the political thriller aspects of the story rather than the mystical parts. Don't get me wrong, the chapters with the Dothraki, the Targaryens, and the Night's Watch were interesting in their own right, but all the house conflict and royal intrigue was much, much more entertaining to read, personally, for me. So now let's talk about some of the characters. My favorite characters is what we're going to start out with here, and of course number one for me is Ned Stark. He seemed like the only character who was unquestionably good, and even if he made mistakes or dark choices, I never questioned if he was a good person or not, and so he was by far my favorite. My next favorite character, his son, Robb Stark. For not being a POV character, he sure had a great arc, and watching him being forced to grow from a boy to a man out of necessity was really rewarding. Another favorite of mine, Catelyn Stark. I thought her chapters were right up there with Ned's for my enjoyment level. Sure, she made a pretty big mistake in capturing Tyrion, but her part to play was bigger than I expected and more fun. And another favorite of mine, Jon Snow. Of course I had to include Jon Snow, because even though I feel like he has a lot more to do in the future than he necessarily did in this book, I love a good outcast underdog story. And so I couldn't help but like him. And now we're moving on to some of my least favorite characters, or at least lesser favorite characters. And of course, the two main ones I'll say is Joffrey Baratheon and Cersei Lannister, because they're terrible people. That's really all there is to it. And then another least favorite of mine was Sansa Stark, because she was just really annoying. So I hope she, develops more, but in this book she was kind of just annoying. And now, on to the kind of final part of this video. I want to rank the POVs of A Game of Thrones by my level of enjoyment. So we'll just go through all the POV characters, and I'll just rank them from my least favorite to my favorite. So number 9 is Will. And he's a member of the Night's Watch, a ranger of the Night's Watch, and he's only there for the prologue. And I almost forgot about his chapter, honestly, though it did hook me in for the rest of the book. Number 8 is Sansa. Like I said, she was just annoying, and her betraying her family and idolizing Joffrey rubbed me the wrong way. At number 7 is Daenerys. Now, I knew before reading that Daenerys is an important character, but I was honestly not impressed with her chapters. It didn't really feel like a lot happened until Khal Drogo's injury. It just felt like a lot of parading around, and so I was kind of bored by most of it, frankly. At number 6, Bran. Bran's chapters were mixed for me, as some felt very eventful and some felt boring, since he couldn't move around or get in on the action as well due to his injury. Still, he was an enjoyable character in his own right. At number 5, I have Arya. Since she's the opposite of Sansa, I felt Arya's chapters were more entertaining and fun, especially since she got into more trouble. I think it's also worth mentioning that it was a bold and ultimately praiseworthy choice to have Ned's death occur from Arya's point of view, or lack thereof, since she couldn't really see it, as it left me, and I'm assuming other readers, in shock. We didn't get to see Ned's death from his own perspective, where the chapter ends with him dying. We got to see it from Arya's perspective, and so I really like that decision. Although some people might not, I thought it was really good. At 4th, I have Jon Snow. Like I noted before, Jon's story wasn't particularly interesting on the plot front, but his identity as an outcast in society made him a character that was easy to root for. My third favorite POV character was Tyrion. Tyrion Lannister. I can see why Tyrion is a fan favorite. His character is written spectacularly and is fun to read. He might have popped off the page more than anyone else. However, I personally prefer my characters more morally good than Tyrion, and thus I can't rank him as high as most other people would. So, coming in at number 2 is Catelyn Stark. Again, like I said earlier, I enjoyed Catelyn Stark's character very much. She surprised me. Though she made blunders, I loved following her across the Seven Kingdoms as she tried to navigate the conflict she accidentally helped to create. And, of course, not much of a surprise, my number 1 favorite POV character and chapters to read were Ned Stark. Ned was the best character in the book, not only because of his virtue, but also because of how deep into mystery and intrigue his chapters went. Ned was truly out to do good for his king and kingdom, and he got in way too deep and was punished instead of rewarded. The way he went out was a gut punch, but it was very well written. Overall, A Game of Thrones was one of the best fantasy books I've ever read. The characters offered a broad variety of personalities, the plot kept me hooked throughout the entirety, and the setting and world building still weigh on my mind because of how much I want to dig deeper into them. I mean, just everything about it was just so fun to read, and I can't wait to go farther into the story and world that George R.R. Martin created. So, I am thoroughly pleased with A Song of Ice and Fire, Book 1, A Game of Thrones. So guys, leave a comment below if you've read Game of Thrones, or if you've watched the series. Please don't spoil, anything further, because I am reading through more of the books now. But if you want to talk anything related to Book 1, I would be glad to, so leave a comment. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're new here. I would love to have you. And like always, I will see you next time.